Thanks. Thanks,
Next
guys.
up, we have Michael Bourne from Five Forests talking about WordPress, open source, being generous with our knowledge. Really looking forward to this one. So Michael, I think you're muted right at the moment. Now you're unmuted, but yeah, why don't you take it away?
You bet. Hey, everyone. Awesome so far. I've loved all these presentations. A lot of really good information. Let me get my screen up for you. All right, there we go. Confirm you can see it? Take it
yes,
as a yes, just like Peter.
We could see it. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Michael Bourne. I'm the head of development for Five Forests. This talk is going to touch a little bit on WordPress, open source, and being generous with our knowledge. My background prior to Wine was still in web development with a heavy emphasis on WordPress. I've always been a part of that community. I lead my local WordPress meetup group. I participate at WordCamp events every year where I am a speaker and a sponsor. And I've always really enjoyed the open source community that surrounds it. So I know we have a few people in the audience who aren't partners, so I'm going to touch on this quite briefly, but I love WordPress. Us as a company, we love WordPress. A third of the internet is powered by it. It's a very proven platform. It's, well maintained, continuous improvements, continuous development with thousands of developers looking at the source code and making it better in any way they can. It's fostered a really open ecosystem where people can create themes, plugins freely. They can choose to sell it if they want, but everything's licensed under GPL, which means you're free to use their code however you want. And on that note, we touch on open source, which is really just saying the source code for this application is freely available, and it's generally always paired with a flexible license that allows you to modify it, distribute it, update it however you want. You know, that's one of the more technical things about how you use the source code, but really what we find is that it reduces the gatekeeping. It really helps foster participation among users, knowing they can contribute and use it, and it makes a good thing available to everybody. So that's where I got to this point as I was writing it, and I thought, that sounds really cool, but what the heck does that have to do with wine? Simply put, I think we as a community could do better. And this isn't at any one specific group or person. It's not even for Commerce7. It's just as an industry, from an outsider's point of view, me only being in it for a few years, I found that there was a lot of closed doors. It wasn't necessarily open, a lot of proprietary knowledge and tools being used, not the most accessible market to tap into for outsiders, for newcomers, and conversely for wineries. So I've tried to do better, and this year in 2021 as a company, we're definitely striving to, but the main goal here for me is to be a little more generous with our knowledge. So when it comes to the ideology of open source, why can't we share the tools we use so other people can benefit them? Collaborate. Why not work together with two people with a singular goal to create something or release something or improve something that everyone can benefit from? Cooperation in the sense that we might not have to work together, but I can make something I know freely available to you, and it's up to you to utilize it, but here it is. And empathy, which is really, it's been touched on already. Peter mentioned it, but there's a lot of hardship out there right now, and it's brought a lot of people to their knees, whether that's a winery or a web designer, web developer. COVID changed a lot of things, and I think there's some things we can do to improve it. Sorry, as I'm getting dry mouth here. Open source. By sharing the tools we use, we can empower other people to meet at our level and invite them to help us improve. My contribution to this would have been my Commerce7 for WordPress plugin. It is open source, GPL licensed. It's on GitHub, or anybody can make a pull request if they like. I invite people to review the code. If you see something I can do better, let me know. I'm committing to continuing to keep that available, keep it free, and continuously improving it so that wineries can benefit. But where Commerce7 comes in, I actually just edited the slide this morning. Their new email block builder is really just a React component that could be packaged separately. Wild idea. Why not open source that so that you can get outside developers helping you improve it, which would then improve the functionality for Commerce7 and the wineries using it? So maybe a direct call out, but there's always little things like this where we don't have to proprietarily own something that we've created when there's a community out there that could actually help us do better and make it better. Collaboration, uh, you know, you get a bunch of people in a room, great minds come together, really great ideas come out. Uh, I had some ideas for that. Work with other partners to create apps together for Commerce7. A lot of people here in this audience are already doing this one quite well. I think Simon's even had a few this year alone, but host some webinars where wineries can learn from you, your peers, and get access to your ideas, your data, your suggestions for them, and it's free of charge. You're sharing your experience. Um, on that note, share the data and the reports for people. A lot of us collect tons and tons of metrics for our clients. We improve their websites, we improve their processes. We can share a lot of the generalizations we get from that data to say this is how this works better. As Peter said, putting a call to action for a product add to cart on a homepage, really good. You throw that into a personalization block for someone who's a repeat customer, and odds are they're going to be clicking that right on the homepage. Demonstrate how to use that data. Just like I said, when you have a point of data, it's one thing to tell someone, here's what we have recorded, and it's another to say, here's how you can apply this to your business today to make a change. And last but not least, if you don't have any of that at hand, come to events like this. Go to other people's webinars, ask questions, participate. There is no such thing as a bad question. Ask it. There's a good chance someone else in the audience is thinking the same thing, and the answer to that will now help everybody. My example for this would be the Facebook conversion tracking app that I built with TreeFrog. Pablo and I were talking. We both had a general idea of something we wanted to do. And instead of stepping on each other's toes, we said, let's work together to build it. And we did. Cooperation. This is less working with someone else and more so just working towards allowing people access to something you can do to improve it. So Emetry, which is now Pix Wine, I thought was a great example of this when they made their analytic platform completely free to all Commerce7 wineries. Wineries can enable this app. They can get a breakdown of all their sales by state. They can get tiers of their top performers versus just consistent customers. They can export this data into any platform they use, like MailChimp, to help segment emails and talk to the right people with the right message. TreeFrog, who I've mentioned, they decided to price all of their operations based apps at a very, very reasonable price point because it was something that would help improve the process of that person's business. And there's no reason to, technically profiteer off something that's an operational process versus a marketing improvement. And Digimatic recently came out with the new MailChimp app. When I saw that, I asked Andrew about it. Is this app any good? How was it built? I talked to you, Bodhi, and I liked what I was seeing, but there was one thing missing, which was revenue tracking. So I went to Bodhi with an action plan and said, hey, I know how to make this work. I don't need to do it for you or even with you. And instead of me building my own app, would you be willing to add this to yours so that my clients and everyone else can benefit? Which, it's extra work for him on nights and weekends. And he said, absolutely. And he built it, he released it. And now at the same price point as the other apps, you have full revenue tracking in MailChimp. My last point here is empathy. We're all in this together, but what I say is designers and developers need to come together and talk to our clients in a way that's easy for them to understand. Let them know what's going on, what their options are, how certain decisions are affecting them, and use that to make a plan to better communicate with their customers and better serve their customers. Commerce7's already mentioned accessibility when it comes to their backend and their admin widgets. A lot of that transfers over to a website as well, for example. So, my controversial opinion is it's not necessarily enough to put an accessibility widget on a website and call it a day. A lot of accessibility cases are temporary. They're caused by injury or sickness, and it's not something permanent that a widget can pick up like a screen reader or just keyboard navigation. So we have to think a little bit more in the eyes of who we're serving, first as partners and then as a winery to their client, and come to their level and make it really easy for them. So I don't want to just sit here and say I'm preaching, so I'll just put it out bluntly. What is Five Forests doing? As I mentioned, we committed this year to actually putting consistent effort in. A lot of this was based on something Matt Mullenweg from WordPress came out with in 2014, which he called Five for the Future. And that was him very blatantly asking any partners, people, agencies, developers, designers, anyone in the community who used WordPress, would you be willing to put 5% of your time into improving WordPress, either through development, training, documentation updates? There are dozens of ways you can contribute to WordPress core. And 5%, what that turns into is 1 day a month for the average business worker. So far, we've got the Commerce7 for WordPress plugin with over 100 active installations. That's over a quarter of Commerce7 customers right now are using it to very simply integrate their website and not have to worry about the technicality of how that's done. We've released a social media calendar, which gives wineries 1 full year of content planning and the ability to plan that content in a post-pandemic world. And another one we don't advertise quite as much, but we seem to do a lot of is small winery consultation. So right now we're up to over 60 hours of one-on-one phone calls and meetings with small wineries that are just frankly overwhelmed. So they can call us, we will talk to them. It's not an upsell. They don't need to pay us any money, and we just help guide them through the changing landscape of getting wine online. And one thing I'm excited for is next week we're releasing a series of free WordPress themes for wineries. These are going to be completely integrated with our Commerce7 for WordPress plugin. They're built on a fully GPL theme. Everything's open source. Every page is built natively inside of Gutenberg, so there's no vendor lock-in with advanced custom fields, flexible content sections. No price tag. It's free. It's going to take about 5 clicks and it imports a fully populated, functional, integrated Commerce7 website to whichever host you decide to use. And I wanted to wrap it up, hopefully quickly here, with leaving the door open just on my end. Any one of you partners who are active in the Commerce7 Slack, you'll probably see that I'm pretty active there. I'm keeping that up. If you have questions about integration, APIs, coding, how to do the things you do, ask them. If I happen to be around and have free time, I'm going to be there to answer. If you, as a partner, wants to use any of those tools we've put out for your business, you're absolutely welcome to. We invite you to. If you happen to be a winery owner in the audience here and you want to reach out, you just need someone to talk to about what your options are going forward, what you can do, talk to us. We're not going to sell you. We'll give you sage advice, hopefully, and hopefully you can use that to improve your business. And fourth, just so you know, I'm always going to practice what I preach. If you see something I can do better, if you see an improvement you can put into any of my work, I welcome any and all contribution and feedback. Please reach out. I do have an open door. And that is it for my talk. Thank you very much.
Uh, Michael, that's fantastic. You're certainly generous. I know that a lot of our clients rely on that WordPress plugin, so I appreciate that. Really excited to see those new templates and understand how those go and stuff. I'll be excited to see that. Where do you, when you look at Commerce7, the things that we're doing, and we've talked internally about open source, but never in a serious way. We've invited several people, yourself included, Peter, a few people that participate in some of our code, so you have access to our front end and stuff like that.